Okay, so I'm going to do a tutorial on using VR within Oculus and uh, Unity, and also have to get Blender objects into Unity and then muck around with them. So as far as setting up the Oculus, I'm not going to really go into that because a lot of it's covered on the internet anyway. But what you need is you need a link cable, which is a USB-C cable to normal USB 3. You can also get USB-C to USB-C as well to plug your Oculus in. You obviously need a Facebook account. You need to download the Oculus app onto your Android phone or iPhone. You need to have developer mode enabled to be able to drop files onto the Oculus. That's another thing you need to do. And within Unity itself, the Unity software, you need to have certain settings set for the Oculus to be able to use it with VR. So the first thing to say is that you can see that I've got a screen at the moment. Hopefully you can see that where you've got different projects that you can create. You've got different versions of Unity. Firstly, there's Unity Hub. In terms of software, there's Unity Hub, which is basically a way of having an asset store where you can users can sort of contribute to their models and stuff into the store. Some you can buy, some are free, and you can use them within your scenes. Um, they've also got within Unity Hub, linking off of that, Unity have created some really good documentation around their interfaces for doing work with VR, and they've also got within there some easy to learn tutorials as well that are set up. So you can create different versions when you're actually creating a Unity project. You can obviously use 2D and 3D, but you can also have ones that are set up, projects that are set up already with templates there for VR and AR. The Oculus doesn't really use AR, so you're talking about VR and using this VR Core 1. The differences between this HDRP and URP is basically one's a high definition rendering, and this one's like a lower definition rendering. So they're just, in terms of performance, you might find that they're normally you would can use this, but if you're doing heavy work, then you can just test stuff out with a normal pipeline URP. You've also got things doing 3D on mobile as well. I haven't tried that. You've also got these really good templates that for doing 2 and 3D. So Lego is a good one to try mucking around with. But I'm just going from using a book with VR Core, which is this one here, to start with. You can also use 3D Core, but VR Core is a good one to use as well. So you can create a project. These are different editor versions. So you've got Unity Hub itself, and then you've got Unity Editor, which is where you'll do your work. So yeah, so I'm going to cancel out of that. So in terms of what we're looking at then is, in terms of the actual Unity Editor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new project. I will create a brand new project, a 3D VR Core. Just wait for it to create. So what I've done is I've created an existing project, but I'm going to just show you the few things in terms of the new project and what things you need to change potentially to with a new project to make sure that you can run it on the Oculus. So you'll see that in a minute. So packages, when it says resolving packages and package manager, just a note on that. So all the packages are basically collections of libraries of software basically that you use within Unity, and what you'll find is that there's certain packages that you need to include when you're running the Oculus Quest. Within the Oculus, they basically built it so that you can now they basically built it so you can now use something called an XR interaction toolkit, which I'm going to talk about in a minute as well. Just waiting for it to take ages when it's doing it stuff. So you can see the different version numbers. There's 2019.4.34F1. There's 2020.3.25F1, and what you've got to be careful of is the documentation. You've got to make sure that you're looking at the right documentation for the right version, because obviously as it's progressed, they do change quite a lot of things basically between versions at the moment, because obviously quite a new a new API that's basically come out and it's changing quite rapidly because the technology advancing so quick. So in terms of the editor, you've got I'm not going to necessarily go into all these things, but you've got the ability to sort of scale. So if I look at these different things on this top bar, you've got the ability to scale, rotate, move your scene around, and on the left hand side you've got a hierarchy of all different objects in your scene, so you can create a scene and then basically sort of put all of the different objects that you're going to be using in your scene into there. As you're building the scene, they'll appear in a hierarchy in this tree form. You've also got different directories that here. So under your assets directory, you've got materials, which are basically things that you can sort of add onto the surface of a model, for instance. In the same way, textures, you can apply them. Prefabs are things that built pre-built, so you can create a single object, and from that you can use that multiple times. So within my scene, I've got like a ball, for instance, and I can create one of those, put it into the prefabs directory, and then reuse that as a ball sort of several times within my scene. You've got the XR interaction toolkit I'm going to talk about in a minute, and then you've got and then you've got this inspector, which is over on this side within my layout, and that basically gives you access to all the different properties of all different objects that are being used within your scene. So things like your coordinates, X, Y, Z coordinates of your different objects within the scene, things like the color, and any other bits and pieces, they all normally sort of appear within this inspector. And when you're doing things within the inspector, it's actually building. So we've got a blank scene. So when you're doing things within your scene, it's you can see that it's got a VR template project. So like I said, in here you can see the documentation. So if I click on the documentation, you can see it talks about the makeup of the VR template and what's in it, all the different sort of objects that are being used. So if I go back to the application, so and obviously you've got bug reporting and things like that. So I've got within this sample scene, I've got what's called an XR rig, and this XR rig has basically got a camera in it in the same way that you'd have a camera in Blender and things like that. You've also got a right controller and a left controller, which are obviously for the Oculus controllers. So the first thing you need to do to make sure your Oculus, you obviously got to have a link cable. You've got to plug that in. You've got to make sure the developer mode is switched on. You can find how to do that online. It's a bit tricky to do to start with, because you just got to make sure when you create your Facebook details that you include an organization. That's the one thing that tripped me up. So that's just something to remember. But basically you can look at your build settings, and you can see here that you've got Android, and like I said earlier, Android is the thing that runs on the Oculus. That's the software that the Oculus uses. Within Unity itself, it uses C++ as a language. So what we can do is if I show you, for example, if I click on, these are different inspector. In the inspector, you've obviously got, so I've got a plane, which is basically like a thing that everything's going to sit on. You've got your cameras, you've got your controllers, like I just said. Now, if I want to basically look at, I can edit. So these are basically all C the way it's implemented is it's all C# underneath the hood. So you can look at the C# code and you can actually make changes to it if you want to do that as well. What this is doing is basically loading Visual Studio Code underneath. So when you install the software, basically the Unity software, I think it automatically installs both Android and Visual Studio Code. So this is basically an example of the C++, C# code that's sitting underneath, and you can obviously sort of make changes to this. It's software obviously that comes with the libraries that are installed within the library. So you've got, if I go back to the application itself, we don't need to bother going into the C# code. The point I'm trying to make is that as you're dragging and dropping these things around, it's actually building code underneath the hood. So when you add a component, you can add components and you can get audio and you can get various other things. XR, for instance, is a thing that we use for doing all our the stuff that we're going to do basically for doing some Oculus stuff. But you can add all things like audio, effects, and you can also do physics things. So you can add in colliders and things like that. That when they're obviously a collider is used. So if I throw a ball at an object and it hits it, then that's a collider, and you can have an event that gets triggered once that happens, and a bit of code that gets run underneath the hood. So if you hit something, you might score a point or something. I don't know. Anyway, so what we're going to do is within here there's a package manager, and the package manager is basically used to show what packages of software are used at the moment. So within here we've got an XR plugin management, and one thing we need to do in here is we need to make sure that we've got this XR integration toolkit, and within here at the moment it's not there. So all we need to do, if I try looking for the XR integration toolkit, I should be able to find it. XR integration toolkit. We've got interaction subsystems, but we can't find the integration toolkit, and that's because within the Unity registry, basically this is a list of all the different packages that are there at the moment. And one thing we need to do is basically make sure to include the XR integration toolkit, because that's something that Windows needs. Unity needs. So within the project settings, you can actually look at the package manager, and you can make sure that the XR integration toolkit is installed. Anyway, so I think it's the preset manager. I might have to come back to that and let you know how to do that. But basically, in here you need to just make sure that the previews are enabled, so you actually then see the XR integration toolkit. Anyway, so I've got a project that I've created already, so I'm going to open that. Yeah, I'm going to switch to that project. So this is my project that I've been using, and I'm just going to now check that everything's right. So you can see preview packages are in use, and I think what I did to enable that is I went into the project settings, and within the package manager itself, I think what I did was I went into the actual package manager within this version of Unity, and within here you can see all these previews and that are enabled basically, and what that means is that it's software that's not fully productionized, fully tested basically, but it is nevertheless in use, and it's XR integration toolkit. That's the one you want basically. You need to have that. So yeah, so that's my first tutorial anyway in terms of just basic setup, and I'm going to go through the editor in a minute how to use it.